So the Cowboys have a new defensive coordinator in town. His name is Christian Parker, and today we will talk about 3 reasons why you should love the hire. Welcome everyone into the show, man. I'm excited for having you here, and honestly, man, excited about the Cowboys having a new coach for us to talk about. The Cowboys obviously fired Matt Eberflus days after the season was over. We thought it was going to be kind of like a long process before they fired him. We thought we would hear the same old coaching candidates to fill that opening, but then it ended up being a very positive search, in my opinion, with a very different theme. Instead of looking for former head coaches, the Cowboys were looking for younger coaches, maybe more inexperienced coaches, but maybe hungrier coaches for the same reasons. And ultimately, they settle on Christian Parker. For those of you who don't know, I will tell you the very quick version of Christian Parker's resume. Most recently, pass game coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And as you know, the Eagles have had a pretty damn good defense over the last couple of years. Before that, he was defensive backs coach for the Denver Broncos. And if you think about it, this is more or less the coaches that he's worked with. Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph, Mike Pettine. This guy comes with a very powerful background of coaching backing him up. And he's only 34 years old. So these guys started coaching at 22. He's been in coaching for over a decade. The guy is ready. So don't let the age scare you away. Yes, the guy might be young and everything, but it doesn't mean he's not experienced, which is important here. And even though he hasn't held a defensive coordinator position before, doesn't mean that he's not going to be good at it. Those are very important things to get out of the way. Before I dive into the reasons, though, let me say hi. Welcome everyone into the show. We've got Facebook, YouTube, Instagram going over here. If you see me turning to the right, that's because we've got TikTok going over here. What's up, TikTok? Thank you for joining. I saw Adam in the chat. Shout out to you, sir. He said, real best Cowboys content right here. This dude doesn't miss. Shout out to Adam, man. Appreciate you. We've got Jaime saying Primero Cowboys team. For those of you who don't know, I've got a Spanish show about the Cowboys. It's called Primero Cowboys. So shout out to Jaime. We've got Roy over here. He says, yo, what's up? How's it going, Cowboys Nation? Leja says, we got to do good in free agency this year. And that is a great comment, which I love because, listen, man, getting the right defensive coordinator was step one. Check, right? You got to give him weapons. And to illustrate this, I'll dive right into reason number one that you should be excited about the Cowboys hiring Christian Parker is the dude is an all-pro factory when it comes to the cornerback position. He was around in Denver when the Broncos drafted Pat Surtain II with a first-round draft pick. By year 2, Surtain was an all-pro. First team all-pro, too. Then afterwards, in Philly, the Eagles draft Cooper DeJean in the second round. They draft Quinton Mitchell in the first round. Both of them, year 2, which was just now, 2025. Both of them, first team all-pros. So since he's been a defensive backs coach, he's gotten 3 quality quarterbacks in the NFL draft. By year 2, he had turned them into all-pro talents. Now, granted, you're talking about 2 first-rounders, and you're talking about a second-rounder that was considered a steal. Because if you remember, when the Eagles got Cooper DeJean in the second, everyone was like, that's freaking unfair. Howie Roseman this, Howie Roseman that. But still, he made it work, right? So Parker deserves a ton of credit there. You think about it from the Cowboys' perspective, there are no cornerbacks to work with, if we're being real. The only one is of course, Savon Rebel Jr., right? That part is very promising. You've got LeRon Bland, who you're hoping can bounce back from another foot surgery. But the Cowboys would be very smart to head into this offseason and be like, this guy knows how to work cornerbacks. Let's get one in the NFL draft in the first round. We've got 2 first-rounders. Let's get Mansour Delane out of LSU. Let's get Jermont McCoy out of Tennessee. That is a tricky one because Jermont McCoy has not played in over a year. And I don't know that the Cowboys want another one of those little projects. I personally wouldn't be a fan. But the guy is considered a top 15 prospect by just about any NFL draft analyst that you talk to. Or say the Cowboys want to go in a different route in pick number 12. Do you consider Avion Terrell from Clemson in pick 20? Do you consider the South Carolina guy, right? There are a lot of avenues the Cowboys can take with this one. But what I'm trying to say is the guy develops cornerbacks. Get him a freaking cornerback. Heck, get him two of them if you want, right? The Eagles did that double dipping thing. And shout out to Legia here who's saying double dip on corner if you can and get better on linebackers and safeties and edges. And that's the thing, man. We talk about the NFL draft because that's what the Cowboys have made us used to. But if this team doesn't start its process in March and actually brings in quality free agents, the NFL draft is going to be for naught. That's not going to be enough to rebuild what was a historically bad defense. But anyways, that's just reason number one. The dude develops all-pro cornerbacks. Now, reason number two why you should be excited about Parker arriving at the team. I think he's the perfect fit for Brian Schottenheimer. You think about Brian Schottenheimer year one, what do you think of? Think about that energy that he brought to the table. You think about that culture, quote unquote, that he's trying to install. And you cannot deny that that was evident. You could feel it with the Cowboys in the offseason and also in the regular season. Now, the Cowboys missed the playoffs. The defense sucked. I really think that was mostly a coaching issue and a talent issue. Schottenheimer made George Pickens buy in. The same George Pickens with all of the drama from Pittsburgh, he bought in at Dallas. You had the Cowboys start the season in terrible fashion, and then they went on a little bit of a win streak that kept our hopes alive for a while. Now, again, I'm not here to say that means the Cowboys are going to be running for a Super Bowl next year or anything like that, but you can see that the energy emphasis that Schottenheimer was trying to install was actually palpable. It was actually tangible in a way. And then you had Matt Eberflus on the defensive side of things. And Matt Eberflus maybe has a strong resume before Dallas, right? He's a good defensive coordinator for the Colts. The defense was good in Chicago, even though he was fired for like time management reasons and things of the sort. But he wasn't on that same page as Shotty was in terms of energy, in terms of all that. Now you bring in a 34-year-old coach that is known for his ability to communicate with players, for his ability to relate to his players and teach his players. And I think Shotty and Parker are made for each other. I think, and based on what we know, Parker was not a favorite early in the process, but he blew the Cowboys away in interviews. And Nick Harris tweeted about this. Jonathan Gannon, for example, was an early favorite. But after interviews, Parker kind of took the lead again. And maybe the Cowboys like Jim Leonard, maybe et cetera, right? But Leonard is likely going to end up with the Giants, in my opinion. So it made sense for the Cowboys to get ahead of the curve and be like, screw it, we're not playing the waiting game, and we're securing the guy that we want. Parker, come on down. That was a good thing as well. But again, man, what I'm trying to say is I think Parker fits Schottenheimer's vision so well, and that makes me very excited. Now, I'm going to hit you with reason number 3 right now. This dude, and I already mentioned it a little bit, but this dude comes from the Big Fangio coaching tree. But he's also been with Vance Joseph. He's also been with Mike Pettine. He's also been with Ejiro Evero, who's right now with the Panthers. And not that long ago, he was seen as one of the best defensive coaches in the entire NFL. His coaching tree is varied. And I think what really makes me excited about this specifically is that I expect Christian Parker to come in and modernize the Cowboys defense. If you think about the Cowboys defense over the last 5 years, think about cover one, you think about with Dan Quinn, right? A lot of cover one, just one safety up high, man coverage across the board. Maybe some cover 3 in there as well. 3 deep zones. That's more or less what Eberflus came in and started doing. Maybe some 2 high as well. But what you're going to see from Parker likely is a very mixed diet of coverages. You're going to see cover 6, and you're going to see quarters coverage, and you're going to see them adapt to opponents as the season goes on. I was looking at And John Owen from PFF tweeted this out. I was looking at the Eagles coverage breakdown last year. They did a little bit of everything. And that's modern football nowadays. You got to be ready for offenses that are going to hit you deep, offenses that are going to sustain long drives. I think the Cowboys over the last few years, they've been kind of boxed in into one specific style of defense, and I expect Parker to change that. I expect Parker, to come in and be like, no. We're doing a little bit of everything. Every single week, we're going to adapt to our opponents. And that's exciting. That's very exciting as well. Christian Parker is a hire that I really like. I will admit it's a hire that I didn't expect at first, because what did we think? The moment the Cowboys fired Matt Eberflus, what did we think? We went, you know what? This team is going to look at former head coaches. So we thought Jim Schwartz. We thought Jonathan Gannon. We thought Raheem Morris. We thought Brian Flores even. And obviously Brian Flores was complicated for so many other reasons. And naturally, as we discussed at one point in these live shows, Brian Flores ended up with the Vikings. For Flores, it was either a head coaching job or the Vikings. But anyways, I digress. We thought about former head coaches when the Cowboys were looking for a new DC. And then they hit us with 9 candidates, 5 of which did not have coordinator experience even. Jonathan Gannon was like the only head coach type. And these felt like a very different search, which brings me to a bonus reason of why I like this hire, man. And it's a very simple one, but it's the most important one, perhaps. This is Brian Schottenheimer's hire. People joke about it, but it's true. Jerry Jones did not know who Christian Parker was a couple weeks ago. He did not know that. Just like he didn't know who Clayton Adams was a year before today. So the fact that we usually complain so much about having coaches that allow the front office to push them around and do whatever they want, Shotty is showing you that he's telling the front office how we're going to do things. And that part is exciting as well. This is a Schottenheimer hire through and through. There's a reason why the Cowboys went from 2 years ago interviewing to replace Dan Quinn. They interviewed Rex Ryan, Ron Rivera, and Mike Zimmer. Those were the interviews, right? 1 year later, they pretty much only interviewed freaking Matt Eberflus and gave him the job one day after hiring Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach, which tells you it wasn't like Brian Schottenheimer had 2 weeks to settle on who's going to be his defensive coordinator, which is usually what happens, especially for first-time head coaches. But Dallas right now has a first-time head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, a first-time defensive coordinator, and all the guys that they interviewed for DC were under 50 years old. And Parker is 34 years old. This is something new in Dallas, and there's no other way of describing it. That should excite Cowboys fans. Is Parker going to work out? I don't know. We haven't seen him do the defensive coordinator job, but he has a strong resume. And if the Cowboys now do their part and build a good football team, which they really didn't last year, then the Cowboys should have a much better defense. Shout out to Huba here in the chat who says, I like it. Shout out to Mikey who is watching the show as well. Appreciate you guys. Joining over on the TikTok side of things. And over on YouTube, shout out to Mr. Toxic Tom. Hadn't seen you in a while, man. Appreciate you joining the show. We're doing live shows Friday at around 11 or noon Central Time, so appreciate you joining. Joey Bella says, what's up? Nobody's underdog. That's a great username, by the way. He says, reminded me of Mike McCarthy. Nobody's underdog says, been looking forward to this show. I have a lot of optimism for the coming season. Dallas Cowboys for life. Appreciate you, nobody's underdog, man. Appreciate you so much. And Robert says, love the hire. And I do as well. So be excited about it. These are going to be shorter live streams, but we're going to be here every Friday at 11 noon Central Time, more or less. And over on the TikTok, he says, El Podcast Mis Cowboys. Over here, we got Mikey representing the Hispanic speaking community of Cowboys fans. And I know a lot of people are. So shout out to you guys. Robert says, like yourself, young man, young coach for young players like yourself. Dude, I was thinking I'm 26 years old. Christian Parker started coaching when he was 22. And I was thinking, dude, there are very talented people out there. What am I doing with my life? Nah, I'm just kidding. Huba says, I'm not being a homer, but we will make the playoffs. And that sets the table for a very interesting conversation that we might have next week. I think the Cowboys might be the favorites for the NFC East next season. And we should talk about it. But for now, I will leave you with this defensive coordinator conversation. Hope that you guys enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you next Friday, same place, 11 a.m. See you then. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.